Hey there, voiceover junkies. Thanks for being with us. We're at week 4. What an exciting time. And as I promised, the interview with Alan Lee Williams III. Gotta love the name. This guy has been around the block in the best way. He's been on sets such as Stranger Things. He's been on sets such as Walking Dead, working hard in the industry in beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. Alan, how are you, sir? Good to
great.
have you.
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Alan has an amazing YouTube channel, and that's how we got connected first, and then our friendship just grew from there. So tell us about your YouTube channel.
It's called Sound Speeds, and it's dedicated to basically, in the simplest possible ways, a pro sound guy giving advice to amateurs and people that wish they were pros.
Absolutely. And why I felt this was relevant to voiceovers is because sound in the industry is sound in the industry. Is that correct, Alan?
You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, there's something that we say a lot in the film industry, and that is that it does not matter what level of movie or TV show that you're working on, the expectations of sound are the exact same. It's got to have a little background noise. You got to sound good. It's got to be clear. You got to be able to understand what people are saying. Doesn't matter if you're working on Avengers or if you're working on an indie, those expectations are the same.
Which you have. You have worked on big sets like Avengers, correct?
Yes, sir. I sure have.
Excellent. So the really nitty gritty of it is sound can be done easy if you know what you're doing and if guys like you guiding them.
True statement. But the thing that's very important to note about that is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of the times professionals don't share their knowledge with people that are not other pros. And so that's where you come up with a lot of people that online, especially, that will give you information and give you their own opinions, but it's not based on fact or any kind of experience. It's based on whatever they researched and whatever they found that someone was willing to tell them. That's where I'm a little different. I've been a pro for years. I've done it. I know what I'm doing here, and that's why I'm sharing this information. I'm tired of seeing people misinform people online with regards to what it is to produce proper sound.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it right on the head there. You got to get the right knowledge, and that's really why I designed this course. Is I want to take a voiceover artist, an aspiring voiceover artist, and take them from, hey, where do I go from here? Can I do it? Do I need $1 million booth?
It's good to actually do a video on that. So I think your audience is going to get a lot of good information here.
Absolutely. So do they need $1 million booth, or can they find anywhere to record and treat it correctly? And that's the key, folks. Treat it correctly in order to get the sound, or not the sound they want, because they want quiet. Explain that a little more.
Well, let me ask you this. When you are listening to audio, can you tell where it's recorded? That's the big question. You can't. As far as you're concerned, there is a voice out there in the nether someplace in a quiet environment, recording in a way that you can understand, intelligible manner. And as long as you have that, it doesn't matter where you're recording, with a few little bitty things to keep in mind here. For example, if I'm in this particular environment, you look at this and say, oh, well, that's got to be a sound booth. It's not. This is actually a set piece. But the difference is, if I were recording with, just in my regular room that you would see me in, you're going to look at that and you're going to hear the room. You're going to hear maybe a ceiling fan. You're going to hear that kind of stuff. Even if you're not really hearing it, you're going to think that you do. And if you're just recording sound, part of it is putting yourself in an environment that helps you to feel more comfortable. So usually what I tell people is, if you're going to create some sort of a booth type environment, get yourself someplace that is, first of all, relatively climate controlled. If you have like a place in a basement that's always cool in the summer and warmish in the winter, and you have some place that's like a closet that's always hot no matter what you do, try to shoot someplace or record someplace where you have climate control naturally when you don't have air conditioning and fans running. That's going to make you feel more comfortable. From there, you're going to try to barricade out the sounds around you and try to get rid of those. The best way to do that is with hard surfaces. You can go and get yourself some cinder blocks, for example, from the nearest hardware store, and you can build yourself a makeshift booth that way. You don't have to go and buy yourself a whisper room for $3,000 or $6,000 or any other booth out there. All those is medium density particle board with fabric on the insides there, and then you have to treat it yourself. It is simply an environment for you to stand in and feel pro while you do it. And basically, there's little bitty isolations. It's basically made very well so that way it's containing you pretty well. But you can do that and get better results even if you simply use hard surfaces to soundproof yourself from the outside world. And by that, I simply mean like concrete, even hard wood and that kind of thing is enough to completely barricade and block out those outside noises, because hard sounds are going to prevent those sounds from getting into you. But then you're on the inside of it, and you can't. Then when you're on the inside, you cannot have all of these surfaces, these hard surfaces, reflecting your sound back to you. That's when you need to use softer, more acoustic foam type materials. That's where you get your RLX. That's where you get your Owens Corning 703, and you put that up against the walls to absorb the sound. So it's not just soundproofing, and sound isolation. It's also treating your environment to those kind of reflections. And then don't bring noises with you. If you bring in a computer that has a fan, that's a bad thing. Just like if I brought up a wall fan and put it right there, or a box fan, and it's blowing you in the face, it's going to also pop your microphone. It may feel more comfortable, but it's not going to be good for your sound. As long as you keep that in mind, that denser type materials keep out this outside sounds from getting to you, and then the softer sounds are keeping those the sounds of my voice from reflecting back on me, then you're going to probably be in a pretty good spot as long as you have that mindset right there. From there, listen for things like reflections. If you speak, do you hear your voice echoing around inside? Or does it sound like it kind of, if you close your eyes, for example, does it sound like your voice goes out into the world and you don't know where it goes? It should almost feel like you're in a nether, so to speak.
Absolutely. And actually, right on cue, in the movie industry, I'm sure you heard that the hardest people to work with is dogs or pets and children. And Maggie was right on cue there. These folks are going to be working from home. There's going to be distractions like a dog bark. There's going to be a car going outside. There's going to be a lawnmower going outside. And if you're not in a professional booth. And one of your YouTube videos that really attracted me was record in the worst place possible. And one example is your garage. You can work in the worst place possible and do some good recordings.
You can. And that's one of the things that people don't seem to understand is they almost feel like if I can't buy something like a booth, then I'm not going to be really able to do this. And that's not true at all. The big thing you got to keep in mind is you got to have a low noise floor. If you're able to get the background noises to a low and manageable level, and by that it means simply getting yourself away from it. Or in the case of the video you're talking about, I was in my garage. I closed the garage door. I turned off the water heater that was right next to me, and I could do that because my wife is out of town. And then from there, but if I couldn't have done that, I would have blocked it off. And then from there, I simply put up stands with some furniture moving blankets around me, and that barricaded me in. But that's not going to be enough to curb all those highs. It may be, I'm sorry, for the lows. It may be enough for the highs, but those lower frequencies are going to still reflect out through the room. So the big thing you got to ask yourself is, are you going to make yourself a spot that you can keep up and simply just use it when you walk into it? Maybe do a modification or two, just a little thing like a stand has a couple of Fernie pads on it or something, and then the rest of it is built in? Or do you have a closet that you walk in, sit down at, close the door, and now you're in your space? You got to think about what you want it, what your environment is going to be and how you're going to be using it. Because a garage, for example, I need that to be my garage. So I could use it and make a video or something or do a recording, but am I going to be able to keep everything up in that room routinely? And a lot of the times, whatever you set up to be your vocal booth or recording area, you're going to want to try to keep up most of the time. Put it in a place that's out of the way where you don't have all of a sudden your wife hits the garage door open and says, oh, I got to go to the grocery store. And suddenly she's leaving and you're like, okay, well, great. Now I have to, get back into the flow of things. You wanted to try to be isolated from the world. So that way, if you have an hour to record, you have an hour to record and you're kind of blocked off from the outside world. You can turn off your ringer, you can turn off your air conditioner, and you're not going to completely melt yourself in there for that recording time.
Excellent. And you talked about noise floor, and we are these folks are brand new to the industry, noise floor is where your voice, your audio starts without you talking. Is that correct, Al?
The simplest possible way that I usually tell people is if you go completely quiet, the volume that you are hearing in that room when you have removed all noises, you've turned off every single noise, maybe your air conditioner, maybe your refrigerator, maybe your computer fans, whatever that happens to be, that is the lowest possible volume that your recording environment can be in. Whatever that lowest possible volume is your noise floor. From there, anything you add to it is going to make the noise floor go up, or the noise in your room go up. So the noise floor is the quietest your room will ever be in the circumstance that you're currently recording in.
Excellent. And you and I both follow Voice Junkie, or sorry, Voice
Booth Junkie.
Booth Junkie, Mike Delgadio. Mm-hmm. And he always says, you know, turn the fan off because sweat is silent.
It is. Absolutely sweat is.
So it brings me to my next question for you, for the folks here at VoiceOver Junkie. The equipment, do they need $1 million microphone? They need an interface that's super expensive and this computing power of NASA. I mean, do they need that, or can they start with something basic?
Well, the easiest way for me to possibly mention this is, the In a World guy, Don LaFontaine. If you took that man and you put him on a $10 microphone, he would be better. He would be able to produce much better stuff, well, when he was alive, than someone could on a $10,000 audio setup if they had absolutely no technique or talent towards voiceover. And the reason why is because it's not about the equipment, it's about your technique and your ability. If you took that microphone, the Manley reference cardioid that he recorded in, and you simply put it in the hands of someone that did not know a thing about voiceover, they would not make it sound that good. And the reason why is because it's not about the gear. It's about you and your ability, your talent, what you bring to it. It's not, they always say it's not about the camera that you're shooting on, it's the photographer. Just like everything else, it's about the ability of the person that uses it. Now, that said, I don't recommend ever starting off with a USB microphone. That's just me personally. I'm a pro. I don't like USB microphones, but what I do like is XLR microphones. And you can, for $100, the same price you would spend on what people always recommend, Blue Yeti, the same amount you would spend on that, you could spend on an entry-level pro sound setup that would allow you to expand on things as you want to invest another $30, another $40, or whatever. You can build on that, and for the same exact money, get something that sounds so much better than a USB microphone.
Right. And I always tell the folks, though, if that's all you can afford and you want to start there, then you're going to have to start with the right client. You don't want to be going after Microsoft. You don't want to be going after the big dogs if you're on a USB microphone. But we can get you started on a USB mic. I highly recommend you don't. Alan highly recommends you don't. But if that's your budget, I'm willing to work with you. There's some things we can do. But if you can invest, like Alan said, $100, same invested in that, then definitely go with the XLR
and
mic.
Even if you have to start used, that's starting somewhere. Don't be thinking that you have to buy brand new things just because brand new is the only way you're going to get something of quality. There's a lot of very, very good gear I have. As a matter of fact, the microphone you're hearing me on right now is a microphone I bought used, and I was at least the second or third person that owned this microphone, and it's from the 80s. I personally love the way this microphone sounds, but they discontinued it back in, I think, 12, 15 years ago, and they replaced it with a newer model, which I don't like the sound of. But to me, I love this microphone, and even though it is older than most of the people that I work with on set, it still sounds great.
Excellent. And so you've got microphone, you've got the audio interface, and you've got the headphones. Also, some recommend the mixer board, but it's not necessary. It's something that you can get away with. As long as you're connected to the computer and you can control your audio, you should be good.
Correct. And you could get a very long XLR cable that allows you to go from your interface. If you want to put your interface next to you and then have a very long XLR that goes into the next room where your computer is, if you want to get it and its fans and all of that out of the way, and so that way you don't have to worry about that, and you only have this little bitty box with your headphone dial on there, and you can see your levels and everything flashing, that's fine. Behringer makes some very good entry-level USB audio interfaces that you can get very easily for $30 to $40. And that allows you to plug in your headphones and some sort of a microphone that you could get a very good entry-level condenser for $30 or $40. But on that note, don't buy cheap one-stop shop, you know, and I don't want to sound mean or anything, but the unbranded Chinese microphones out there, those things are not going to be what you want to start with. The fidelity of those microphones are not there. Buy something that has between 4 and 5 stars on Amazon, for example, or buy something that has a good reputation online. If you do a couple of Google searches, people are constantly going to be saying that this is registering between like 4.4 and 5 stars as an entry-level mic. There's no real complaints about the actual quality of that microphone. You get something like that, and all you need is the interface, your headphones, and the microphone in there with you. The rest of it can be outside of the room.
Absolutely, and that's 100% right. I mean, you want to keep everything out that you can that makes noise and heat. I mean,
yes.
You want to keep everything to a minimum.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because when you get going and you are next to basically insulation, then you are all excited. You're burning, you know, a lot of calories. You're up there excited. You're sweating, like you mentioned, and all of a sudden you're next to insulation. What do you think is going to happen? The room temperature is going to rise. You're going to start sweating. Then you're going to start maybe breathing heavy and having some issues there. Make sure you hydrate and keep yourself, your throat lubricated at all times. Keep yourself hydrated, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself falling out.
Yeah, you could have the best equipment in the world. If you're not hydrated, another great tip that you've thrown our way is eating an apple. If you're not doing these tips and tricks, doesn't matter what equipment you have, you're not going to sound good.
Right. That's exactly right.
So tell them about the apple trick and why it's important.
Okay, so your natural mouth, as you drink a whole bunch of water and you're starting to basically hydrate yourself, the first thing that happens, you've ever had that cotton mouth kind of feeling? Well, a lot of that is the saliva building up in your mouth. Something like an apple, if you bite into an apple, those acids help curb some of that. They help tame down some of that. So you don't need to eat the whole apple. Just eat, a couple of bites of it and maybe chew on it, suck on the juices a little bit, and then swallow it. And if you do that, it's going to help you tame some of that saliva and spit and keep you from all over the place.
All right. And then you have something else that's really cool. I mentioned it a little bit in this course, but I want it right from the source. Your kids even tried it. Gollum juice.
Yes. Gollum juice. Okay. So you have Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and even in The Hobbit. Now, Gollum was a very difficult character for Andy Serkis to produce. It was very taxing on his voice. If you look at the behind the scenes for that movie, you have a whole bunch of shots of him in the motion capture suit just torturing his voice, creating the Gollum voice. And that is not natural at all. In order to basically prevent your throat from getting destroyed from that, one of the things that he did is he created this concoction called Gollum juice. It's ginger, it's honey, lemon, things like that that vocalists usually know are soothing on your throat to help if like, for example, vocalists who do opera every single night, if the weather goes cold and their voice starts to get weak, one of the things that they've done for years is they've made teas out of things like ginger and then added honey to it and then squeezed lemon in there. And that helps their throat to kind of stay lubricated, and it kind of helps heal it at the same time. I guess I don't know the science behind it, but I guess it shrinks up some of the inflamed tissues or something. I don't really know. But what I do know is that Gollum juice is what kept Andy Serkis going on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And the way that worked is that he basically heated it up. He made sure that it was the special blend that he liked. And you can add more honey to it if you want it more sweet. You can add more lemon to it if you want it more citrusy. You can even add cayenne to it if you want to add a little bit of heat to it. And there's a bunch of different things you can do that do help you with keeping your throat lubricated and basically in tip-top form.
Absolutely. And I love stories. I love giving stories to give examples how you kind of have to adapt to your environment. One of my favorite stories from you, Alan, is the set of Stranger Things and the construction going on the other side of the train track. Let's go into that.
Oh, wow. That was the scene where we had 11 and we had 8. and they were outside about to move a train. They were moving a train. If you haven't, watched Stranger Things, sorry, spoiler alert. Number 8 is teaching 11 how to move a train towards her. We shot that, and we really did move a train. It was being pushed by a humongous bulldozer type thing on the other side, and they pushed it down towards us. But on the other side of the train tracks, we were on one side. Our stage was on one side, the train tracks there, and then on the other side was a construction site. And no matter what we did or however we tried to convince them, they would not work with us. They would not shut down their backup beeps and all of their noise and building and construction noises. They refused. So what we had to do is try to time it for times when it was quieter over there. But as the day started progressing, since that was a daylight scene and we were getting near the end of the day and we were starting to lose our light because it is winter and the sun sets here in Georgia, at least, it sunsets around about 5:30 or 6 p.m. So being that we had only about another 2 hours to shoot this entire scene, which involved special effects, what we ended up doing is instead of overhead booming, I said I should underboom. And that way I used the bodies of our 2 actresses there to baffle those noises from the set. So instead of me having a microphone over the top of my head, completely open to all sounds hitting it from all different angles, instead of that, I put the microphone in front of them. And since their backs were to that construction site, by me putting the microphone in front of them, their bodies actually baffled the sound of that construction site from my microphone. So I was able to get a better track off of them. And I personally, in my mind, I like to think that it worked and that you heard my sound in the show.
Excellent. And the reason I bring that up is because no matter how ugly your booth is, no matter how weird it seems, if it works and it's getting you the sound you want, then do it. I mean, we talk about in the industry a lot of times when we go on vacation, we can't bring the entire vocal booth with us. So we call them vocal booth forts or voiceover forts, and we make whatever we can, whatever's in maybe the hotel room, and we use mattresses and things like that. I don't care how ugly, how creative you have to get it done, record something good, and make some money.
Yeah, people can't tell when they're listening to it. The only thing that you really can tell with regards to silence, and it takes almost a trained ear to hear it, is the amount of air around someone. If I'm doing a voiceover in this particular environment, it's going to sound a little bit more closed than it would be if I were standing in a big open room with the air conditioner off and I have baffles and stuff close to me and my sound dissipates by the time it gets to the edge of the room. A trained ear will be able to hear that. Most of the lay people will not be able to.
Absolutely. I mean, you see some of the biggest studios, even in New York, their treatment behind them most of the time is bookshelves. Is actual bookshelves with normal things you would put on a bookshelf.
Yeah. And the big thing about that is the main part of your voice that you want to treat for in a vocal booth is the area in front of you. Now, granted, this is all important back here too, but my voice is basically unidirectional until you get to about 50 hertz. At 50 hertz, my voice gets very omnidirectional. But the deeper my voice is, the more it's going to go in every single direction. But if I direct my voice mainly this direction, I want to try to treat this area as much as I possibly can. And then I will treat behind me as, secondary. But obviously, treat the area in front of you the best, treat behind you, still treat it. But you don't need to go as crazy as you do in front of you nearly as much, because most of the sound that is this direction is as you speak out this direction, as long as you can prevent that from echoing and reflecting back at you and it absorbs there, then the reflections and stuff off of here can be dissipated because there's not nearly as much energy pushing into and reflecting off of those surfaces. My voice is going this way, treat that way first.
Excellent. And we touched on it a little bit, but as an audio expert, an audio pro, what really are they listening for? Like a casting director or your client? What are they really looking for in a good quality recording that makes you a professional versus an amateur?
Okay, I'll leave the technique to what you've taught them. But what I'll talk about is the quality of the actual recording themselves. A lot of the times people think that mic specifications are going to tell you everything you need to know about the microphone, but it doesn't. If you look at the specifications themselves, it will tell you a microphone is this sensitive, that you have this amount of dynamic range. This is the frequency response of the microphone. But what it does not tell you is how well focused that microphone is at pulling out the detail in your voice. I could have a microphone that picks up the same exact frequencies and it will show on a frequency response chart just as well. But if I compare it to another microphone that's better fidelity, then you're going to hear the detail and difference, because a microphone that is picking up my sound off of this wall, if it's untreated, is still picking up the same frequencies as it would be if it were a good quality microphone in front of my face. So my point here is, a microphone, when you're listening to it, you want to determine if it is a good quality microphone to use for voiceover. Say a bunch of things that require sibilants. Say, things with S's, P's, B's. Go through your alphabet. Look up a whole bunch of sentences online that use every letter of the alphabet and that use every sound. Go through and read something and then start listening for the fidelity of your voice when you record it and then listen back to it. Are you sounding the way you imagine yourself sounding? Are you muddy at all? Does it sound like there's just a detail? Is it almost blending together a lot of the words because it's almost like a more over top of everything? Or do you hear every single word pristine, clear, and you can almost draw a line through the actual words as you are listening to it? When you can hear the detail of every single word and it doesn't sound harsh to your ear and it sounds very natural and it sounds open and the whole recording seems to just feel good, and you say to yourself, that's the way I think I should be sounding in my recording, then you've nailed it. But a lot of the times people have a tendency of buying microphones that are less than ideal simply because they seem to think that they're going to be okay, and they're not. They are very low fidelity. They may have specifications that people brag about, and they say, this has a huge amount of dynamic range, it has a high SPL. Well, okay, great. How often are you going to be screaming into the microphone? And you need to have it go up to 155 dB, which is above mini guns, by the way, I might add. If you're going to be using that microphone and shooting guns and stuff in your vocal booth, there's a bigger issue. But you want a microphone that has specifications that really help to work with you. And therefore, when you're trying to pick out a good microphone for yourself, think about your voice. My voice is a higher pitched voice. So do I need a voice that really pulls out those highs really well? No. If anything, I needed to more concentrate on the lower end of my voice and help bring up that a little bit. I don't need to concentrate more on what's already there. I want to try to not really compensate for it, but correct for it naturally, just in the ability of the microphone to hear that. So as far as microphones are concerned, I'm not going to go for a brighter sounding microphone, which is where it kind of enhances those highs. I'm going to go for more of a darker sounding microphone, which enhances more of the lows. So that's just a little bit with regards to picking out a microphone that will help to emphasize your voice the way your audience will want to hear it.
Excellent. So now I've made this course the basic it can be to get someone started in the voiceover industry. And I really think I've done that. Now, if they wanted to go beyond, because there is beyond, and you can really become really comfortable with the ins and outs of recording of dBs and reflections and all these things that I like to keep away from in my course for technicality, how can they learn more with Alan?
Well, obviously going to Sound Speeds. Sound Speeds, I started it as a way of having a pro sound guy teach techniques and tricks and what you really would want to know if you want to understand the technical or the behind the scenes aspect of it. Go to Sound Speeds at YouTube, just youtube.com/SoundSpeeds, and you'll find my channel. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to just go through my videos, starting at the oldest one and work your way forward and start looking at the different series I do. One of the videos that I have, the video series is called Masked Mics, where I don't tell you which microphones you're listening to, so you don't have a preconceived notion that this one's $100, this one's $4,000. Well, obviously the $4,000 one should sound better, so yeah, here it is sounding better. Instead, you're listening to the two microphones, and you can really just train your ear and what to listen for there. And then in the next episode, I reveal what it is, and I talk a little bit about those microphones, and you say, geez, I picked the cheap microphone. I need to do some more work here. But another thing that I do on my channel is I do actual technique training as well. So if you want to understand some of the techniques that we use in the film industry, you can learn that too. If you want to learn more about the technical aspects of voiceover that are not taught in this course, you can easily learn that there as well. And I also do open and allow people to send me emails, and I do work with people that send me emails, and I'll be glad to help you out there too.
And it's a good response. I got a response when I said, hey, you want to be involved in my course? And here he is. And you also get to see him barbecue a microphone. So definitely been great talking to you, Alan. And I appreciate you and can't wait to do more work with you.
Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, guys, listen to this. Hopefully you've learned a lot from this course, because it's a very good thing that you were here and you caught everything you did. And definitely take it to heart, because this man knows what he's talking about.
All right. Well, that's Alan. He is an amazing pro in the industry. I just can't say enough good things about him. And he even has a video about Gollum juice. Check it out. And that's been the interview with Alan Williams. Thanks, voiceover junkies.